Excellent. So we're going to go ahead and get started, everyone. Thank you so much. I am thrilled that everyone is here. So welcome to our Chapter Leadership Forum, our fourth session of the day, Building a Sustainable Volunteer Program. So taking on a multitude of responsibilities necessary to running your chapters can be a lot of work, particularly so for the majority of our chapters who are led by volunteers. Because peer support is at the essence of what we do, sharing those responsibilities is not only helpful to lessen the individual burden, but to also create an atmosphere of community and collaboration for all. Today, three of our longtime state organization, our chapter leaders, are here today to help share their knowledge and experiences about building a sustainable volunteer program. Here's how it's going to work. In a few moments, each panelist will introduce themselves by name, organization that they represent, and a basic overview about how volunteerism works in our organization. We also have some preset questions that we'll ask the panelists throughout the day. However, we really want this to be an interactive presentation for everyone. If you have a question for the panelists, go ahead and enter that question into the dialog box on your screen. That's that little bubble in the lower left-hand corner, and we'll incorporate your questions throughout the hour. Now, we will actually be ending between 2:45 and 2:50 because we have another 3:45 and 3:50 because we have another presentation at 4 p.m. At the end of the hour, I encourage everyone to go back to the CLF Facebook page to continue the conversation about volunteerism. What has worked best for your chapter and what has not? In your questions about sharing experiences, please remember to maintain the confidentiality of your chapter participants. And please do not share specific information about any one individual. With that said, my name is Landry Day, and I'm the Chapter and Volunteer Services Director at DBSA. And I'm so excited to have our panelists here. I would love to start with introductions. Jeff, would you like to give your introduction?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Welcome from Southern California, or greetings from Southern California. You can see how nice we have it today. And I'm bragging because everybody else seems to have miserable weather, so I apologize for that. Again, my name is Jeff Fox. I've been affiliated with DBSA almost 11 years now. I've been leadership, started a new group in 2007, and currently we have 5 support groups. It's DBSA Northridge, but it's really a misnomer. If anybody knows Los Angeles at all, we cover all of Los Angeles, the San Fernando Valley, and Santa Clarita Valley. We have a population of over 2 million people just in those 2 areas. And like I said, I'm the founder of the group, but the group has been successful because of the people that we have in it. Thank you, Andrew.
Wonderful. And Chris, if you would introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Chris Chernick, and I'm from New Jersey. And we have a number of chapters here in New Jersey, some of them long-term, over 30 years. And I participate in a local chapter here in a town called Succasunna. And I've been involved in that for about almost 10 years. And we have the support group in Succasunna has been here about 14 years. And we have, various different people that have been helping to keep that group running. And then the state organization is composed of the various chapters in the state, and we offer, trainings and conferences, and that helps to keep us together and helps to keep the chapters motivated to continue. That's what we try to do here.
Fantastic. Thank you. But for our panelists, and let's start with Chris on this question. What volunteers opportunities exist within your chapter or state organization now? And while he is responding to everyone who's in the room, now's the time to start asking your questions in that discussion bubble in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. So Chris, tell us about your opportunities.
So we start our chapter, is always growing with new participants, as well as maybe some longer term participants. So we start to engage people as they become a little more regular, and we ask them always about opportunities to volunteer, whether it's helping to set up or to clean up, or to attend board meetings to give us feedback, and then to become on the board, on the board of trustees. So we try to just always remind the people that come that we are a volunteer organization, and we're always looking for people that are willing to volunteer in any way. And that just seems to evolve over time. It's not a set formula, but just having the attitude of of a sharing environment, I think perpetuates itself to some degree.
Great. What about you, Jeff?
We have a lot of volunteer opportunities. It starts with our board of directors, and each board member has agreed to chair one committee or do something specific in the group, such as a facility manager. So because we have several groups, we have one person that's able to schedule for us. Something happens, they find an alternate location for us. Then we have facilitators. We have facilitator scheduling. Somebody keeps track in the calendar for scheduling. Somebody does facilitator training, fundraising. We have people who take incoming calls from our website and from our referrals. We have members who advocate for other members, that go to the doctors and stuff with them. And we have peer specialists that are working one-to-one with people. And then group management, just like Chris said, we have somebody specifically who's tasked with managing a particular group, but they solicit other people to help them with, setting up snacks and handouts. So each of the board of directors, like I said, they're basically chairing a committee, and then we'll identify and ask people to participate in that committee. So it's hard to say, but we like to make sure people are kind of stable and in recovery, so we can have that the consistency there of the opportunities.
Really fantastic. It sounds like you have a lot of opportunities for people to engage with the chapter.
Yeah, we try, and everyone's encouraged to come up with their own ideas, and we're always open to ideas.
Wonderful. Susie, what about your state organization? What opportunities are available?
Well, we have a very active board of directors. They're all volunteers. For each of our chapters, they are also volunteers. Our members, from there early on, we ask them to participate in meeting setup and meeting takedown. It may be putting the bottles of water out at people's places, or making sure everybody's got a name tag and sign in. In the idea of we're a volunteer organization, that we help each other, that we empower each other. Our leaders ask for help in getting the word out that we meet in such a simple thing as taking the pamphlets that National gives us, putting the chapter information on the back, that passing them out at the meeting and asking each member to give them to all their healthcare providers, including their dentist. And this is just something very simple that people can do. Our leaders then make sure that they appreciate those, or verbalize appreciation to those members, and make them realize how important what they're doing. So PR is something. We do facilitator trainings via volunteers. As I said, we just had a state retreat For that, we had a technical design make our program. We had someone get the food and help with the food. We had somebody handle registration, introduce each of our speakers. We remember that we ourselves are volunteers, and there's lots of work to do. So any work that I or the board of directors has to do, if we can have a member do just a small task of that, that eases the load so that we can do more.
Wonderful, thank you. So we do have some questions that have come in from the audience already, and the first one is asking if you have any recommendations or experience with giving and a requirement for the amount of time that a group participant needs before receiving training to become a group facilitator. And then what's your rationale for that? And it looks like, Jeff, you have a response.
Yeah, I do. Over the years, we've been doing this a long time. And what we found is a lot of times people will come into their group, they'll be really excited that they found it. You know, they don't know why they didn't find it years ago. They're either in a manic state because they're really excited, or they're just want to fit in. And what we found over the past, if we give them a lot of responsibility or allow them to take on a lot of responsibility, they kind of calm down after a couple weeks or a few months, and a lot of times they just don't come back. So we do have requirements. To sit on the board, we want to make sure that people come consistently to at least one group a month, and they've been there for about a year. So to chair a committee, those are our requirements. To be on the committee and help, we don't have any requirements for that, but we want to make sure people are in recovery and stable enough so that it works for them. We don't want them to disappear because they come on too much. I hope that answers it.
Absolutely.
We also, in Tennessee, ask that people attend for about a year before they consider being on the board. We invite everyone to our state meetings and showing some commitment. Like Jeff, people can get burnt out. We start when people express an interest to be a facilitator. Unfortunately, most of the time we have to reach out and ask somebody to consider that. But if someone would ask to be a facilitator, we ask them to read the guidelines or the closing to our meetings, and then you slowly introduce them and get them into a facilitator training, encouraging them to ask questions. And I would say it's probably 3 months before somebody would actually be facilitating. And at that time, we would have them co-facilitate. We try to have 2 facilitators at each of our meetings. That's an ideal situation, but that's our goal.
I would say in the New Jersey area, we don't really have a formula in terms of any guideline that has a particular time, but the timelines mentioned probably are in the range, and it's also a very individual thing. Some people may be ready sooner than others. I think in terms of like facilitators, they tend to be people that have been around for a few months before they go to our trainings, and then it's a gradual thing. Some people jump right in, and some people take a little longer.
Sure. And Chuck, you had another comment.
I do. I kind of piggyback on what Daisy said. We too have at least 2, well, not at least, but we have 2 facilitators, a co-facilitator and a primary facilitator for each of our groups. We do several facilitator trainings, so we try to get as many people in those trainings as possible. Not necessarily to facilitate, but so they understand what facilitating is, first of all. And then once they've done that and they're sitting in the group, I think Chris also said, ask people to sit in that seat, make announcements. We do a round robin introducing ourselves, and a scale of how they feel, so that person will mark all that. But we try to get as many people trained as possible as facilitators. And over a period of time, they'll make the decision whether they want to try and start facilitating in the group. And that's how we work with our facilitators.
We do the same thing as Jeff, encouraging as many people to come to our training for the very same reason, that it helps them to understand the meeting, the way the meeting goes. We also, like Jeff, are conscious of people's health. We encourage all of our facilitators, all of our members to put their health first. And we encourage facilitators to take a break, to step down, to if they are emotionally or mentally going through a little bit more stress, stressing that unless we take care of ourselves, we're not going to be any help to anybody else.
I think that's a really good point, and I think self-care, modern self-care is really critical. So moving right along to the next question, this is from another state organization, and it is, we are struggling to get the local chapters involved. How do they get them involved with the state organization? And perhaps Chris and Daisy, you could talk about your perspective as a state organization. And Jeff, I would love to hear your perspective as a chapter. What would get the chapter involved with the state org?
Invite us. We have a lot of, especially in the part of the state that we're in, we have a lot of, we have Southern California state chapters. And there's not a lot of interaction with the state chapters. And now, because of the death of one of the people, the main people there, it's kind of quiet. But maybe doing more local things and then bringing them into the state chapter. So we're not, they have events, but as far as just being involved for roundtable meetings, we're not often invited to do that.
Sure.
So just reaching out to us would be good. And I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that they run it differently than maybe some of the other chapter state organizations run it.
We specifically ask chapters to come. We also serve food. That is a big thing. Food draws people together and makes for a camaraderie. But
I'll be there.
Pardon?
I said, if you have food, I'll be there.
There's one coming up. The asking people specifically and perhaps giving them a topic to discuss, telling them why you want them there, for them to share about their PR program, emphasizing the importance of learning from other leaders, that chapters share the very same problems, and there is a wealth of information to be had. Besides that, we are all a fun bunch of people.
I have a question to ask as a regular chapter. Especially in our area, the distance is great. We really have to travel far. Ours was in Riverside, so if we want to go to one, it would be at least an hour and a half drive for us, and more for some of the other chapters. I think that's a prohibiting factor or factor in people not participating in some of the state events, state chapter. Go ahead.
Seth, if you could just adjust your microphone a little bit, it's a little bit hard to hear you right now. Okay. Very good. Thank you. And Daisy, did you get that question?
Not totally. I think he was asking about the distance to travel.
Right, engaging people who are far away.
Yes, we have roughly 4 hours to the east and to the west. We are looking at giving some gas compensation for the people that drive. We've thought about meeting, further to the east or further to the west, but that makes it hard. It has been a problem from the start, getting chapters to come. In making our state meeting as valuable to the leaders as possible, we have found that works. Food being one thing, good fellowship another, but also a presenter. The last state meeting, we had someone from Neuromed presenting on transcranial magnetic stimulation. He spoke for 10 minutes and people asked questions for 50. So it was very valuable. The feedback was that they were very glad that was offered so that they could take it back to the chapters. If our leaders find it valuable information, they're more likely to come. We also schedule our meetings for the same time. We have it's the third Saturday in April, July, and then at our fall retreat. So that helps. People can plan for it. It'll be very nice when we can compensate for gas. I think that will also be a factor. We have also done some of this video, Skyping. That has helped.
Can I ask Daisy a quick question? Daisy, what would prevent, or what would be the drawbacks if a state organization did went to different chapters and had the meetings at different chapters once a month, to give everybody an opportunity to host it, and so it would be in different locations, which might not be as hard for some people to get to.
Okay, in our state, it would probably eliminate, if we had it in Memphis, that's instead of 200 miles, that's 400 miles for people from across the state, which would mean lodging, in the option of having it in a different city each month. It would be complicated. Like I say, it would involve an overnight, whereas members, we have our meeting late enough in the central part of the state that people will drive, the 160, 200 miles and then go back or stop halfway. So having it on the east, although we are planning on doing something like that, perhaps not a whole state meeting, but a regional one, drawing people closer, just as a way of expanding.
Thank you.
So I think New Jersey is a little different. We're not as as large as the other states. So I think the general principles that we use are that the state organization exists to support the local chapters, and the chapters become engaged because we offer the trainings several times a year, and then also the last 11 years we've been running an annual conference which brings all the chapters together. Now, not all of the chapters are really engaged in the state organization, probably about half. Some of the chapters, you come to us only occasionally, when they're having issues, but, run more autonomously. And others are, have the desire to be more connected. And those are the ones that are engaged in the state organization and then, ultimately volunteer, for trainings, to help in the trainings or the conference.
Great. So we do have a few more questions from the audience. The first is, do you have job descriptions for the different volunteer opportunities that exist? Jeff, do you want to start?
Yeah, it was basically what I was saying before. I mean, those are some of the labels that we use. Facilitator, trainer, facilitator, manager. Those just we'll give those individuals that label, I guess, if you want to call it. So the answer is yes.
Stacey, do you have job descriptions for volunteer opportunities?
Sometimes. For our retreat, we do. For some of our meetings, we do, because our members feel more comfortable, it seems, in this is the specific task that we're asking them to do. People are very concerned about doing it right and doing a good enough job. Volunteers are empowered and have shared that after they share, they feel empowered, but they feel very nervous about it initially, about whether or not they can do the job, even a simple task. So writing something down, giving them a contact person, a cell phone or a person to go to if they're coming up with a glitch, that has really helped. So the answer, I would say, is sometimes we do have written descriptions.
Sometimes that's a good answer. What about you, Chris?
So I would say we don't really have specific job descriptions. I mean, we have our, officer responsibilities defined in our bylaws, but we kind of run, the trainings, through a set formula, and we have an agenda, for those trainings, and then we have a committee, for the conference that lays out, the programs that we're going to have. So I think it's a little more fluid than, than it might be in other places.
Sure. Sure. The next question has to do with the new chapters, or a chapter that's really just getting started, especially in an area where it seems hard to get growth. What do you do to get volunteers? What do you do to get people involved? Daisy, do you want to start with this one?
Certainly. Something that I start with is by asking leaders from other chapters to visit. That really helps because it validates to the new chapter that they're important. I visit myself and work with the leader saying, hey, you don't have to do it all. Too often the leader is trying to do it all. And that they have to understand, they have to learn that, they're not supposed to do it all. I explained that the most important thing is that the meeting happens when they say it's going to happen, and that the chapter belongs to everybody else, that what we're looking to develop is a core group, that they are going to have to ask people, that people lack the confidence, and starting with the very, very small things, to read the guidelines, to set up the chairs, to take down the chairs, and then to thank them and tell them how important that was. That's a big thing. I think also in a new chapter to talk about the vision, about, wow, we're meeting twice a month, that's great. And yes, it's hard for people to remember, so that which Thursday is it happening. So maybe asking somebody to call and breaking that down into a small number of people to call. That inviting family members in telling people to, as I said, carry the pamphlets to their healthcare providers, reminding them too how important DBSA is, how lonely they felt, how much it helped to have somebody understand, and that's true for all members, and inviting members to share what they found.
Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
So I think we have a lot of times we have people calling to say that they want to start a chapter, and we initially what we try to do is we try to have them partner with an existing group that might be close to them, and have the existing chapter work together with that individual. And we also the topic of this session is about sustaining volunteers, and at the very start we tell people that they can't do it by themselves, and that they need to encourage them, and try not to give them too much pressure, but really to succeed they need someone to work with. So we always ask them, do they have someone to work with? And then we work alongside of them as they, go through the logistics of setting up, and we try to attend the first meeting and things like that. But really the key thing is, getting an existing chapter to partner with them, if we can.
Wonderful, wonderful. Gus, do you have any thoughts?
Can you repeat the question?
How do you get Sure. A chapter who's just starting out, how do they get volunteers? How do they get people to be engaged with their work?
I'm assuming that we're talking about volunteers of some of the people who are already attending the meeting. And that's one of the questions that we've been posed, but it sounds like it's the recruiting volunteer. And we have to remind people that everybody's already volunteering by just showing up. As you made mention of that, everybody's a volunteer. So whether they show up or not, we have a saying that people come for themselves, but they're here for each other. And again, that's volunteering to support other people. We maintain, and we're constantly telling people that this doesn't belong to any person or any group of people, that our members are all owners of this group. So everybody has ownership. And that's how we try to empower people. We're constantly seeking out ideas. We're, as a board members, we're trying to identify people that we see that really want to get involved and ask them to get involved. It's and I defer a lot to quotes because they're very insightful and they're succinct. But I have two for this, and we try and put it on some of our pamphlets once in a while. But the first one is never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing it ever has. And the second thing I like to tell people is tell everyone what you want to do, and someone will help you do it. So it's just asking for help. It's just, you can't help anybody if they don't want it. But it's the same as volunteering. If you need help, if you've identified what you need help with, and that's really probably the most important thing, is identifying what you need volunteers for. And then once you've done that, it's not that hard, we found anyway, to just ask people to help.
I think that's great. And you all three have some really good. Someone noticed that they have some struggles just even getting people to come to their meetings in general. And I'm curious if the three of you, with your expertise, have some quick tips you can give to increase participation.
6 steps? Did you say?
So, sometimes, a lot of times the chapters will ask about, they run into a period where there's not a lot of people coming. I always tell them that, you're there every week and you have people coming and going, and every time that someone comes and goes, they've learned about an outlet that they have, for support. So we just, encourage people to keep going. And also, you have brochures that you give to give to your membership to leave at therapists. We have, a local hospital where we send our brochures to, so it's those kind of things, but it's really just to keep going.
I tell people it's quality, not quantity. I make people aware that one of my most valuable meetings was where there was just the facilitator and myself. I tell members, leaders, that even if people don't show up, they know you're there. They know that help is available, and that's a lot. That can make a difference. And many, many, many times people will call for information and call back 2 years later even going, is that group still going? So they were thinking about it. We do not know how many people know that the group is meeting. Something else that I thought of was having speakers in asking how can members volunteer, asking members to ask their therapist, their provider, if they would be willing to come and speak to the group on a topic. Most everybody's got a therapist, a psychiatrist, and are willing to ask them and feel kind of good when their psychiatrist comes and on a topic, which a healthcare provider coming to talk about agitation, to talk about sleep hygiene, that draws people in. Another idea.
Any other thoughts before I move on to the next question?
Yeah, we're a large chapter. We have about 1,000 members on roster, and we've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and then their emails are changed or they don't come back. But as far as attracting members to the group, I remember what I did when I first started the DBSA Northridge. I went to every event, mental health event that there was. I'd go to interfaith breakfast. If I could find it, I'd go to it. I'd also go to every behavioral health facility in our general area. I would talk to the directors. I would bring flyers. So it was getting out there and outreach and making sure people knew that we were there. It was getting involved with NAMI. NAMI's a great source to refer people to us. So it's all these other organizations that will refer people to us. Unfortunately, DBSA is the best well-kept secret probably in the world. I'm constantly getting new clinicians that are saying, we never knew this was happening. And most of our people nowadays are coming from referrals from clinicians, psychiatrists, social workers, or therapists. But we still get a lot saying, I wish we knew about this. So it's getting out there, making our name known, and what we do. Because we are the only support group of this kind that I know of. I mean, there's a lot of other support groups, there's a lot of other organizations, but peer-led support groups. We are the only ones. So I think that's how we grew ours to the point where they're at.
Just those people I simply call non-attending DBSA members, because even if people physically aren't at the meeting, they use the DBSA principles. They know that they aren't alone, that there's hope. So they are just non-attending members.
Absolutely, and things that we email frequently to these people and reminds them that we're there. And they may not have been there for a year, but then they'll come back. Now, this is not, our disease is not linear. It doesn't just go up and then, it's not like a 12-step program that we can be on the 12 steps, but it goes up and down all the time. So when they're not doing well, they'll come back. When they're doing well, some people have, their life is too hectic to come to groups all the time. But you're right, Daisy. They're just non-participating group members, but they do come back every once in a while. So.
And I have members apologize because they're not at the meeting. I say, you are a DBSA success. I invite members and people to come back when they are doing well, because they help other people in giving hope, and as well as to strengthen their own wellness.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, one of the chapters that we kind of helped real quick, and they've done a tremendous job. You guys all, and I don't think it breaks confidentiality, is Tabitha. You guys know her. Tabitha used meetup.com, and she has done one of the most terrific jobs of, with the chapter that I can acknowledge. So meetup.com is a great place for you guys to look for members also.
That's great. So we have about 8 minutes before we need to close, and I have 2 questions I wanted to ask each of you before we ended. The first is one of my personal favorites, and it's how do you thank your volunteers? And Chris, I'm wondering if you could go first. What do you do to just thank someone for participating?
Well, I think it's a matter of, always thanking, it's just having an attitude of thanking the people that are coming. They're coming to the group, they're volunteering, or they're volunteering in events. We try to encourage them. We send them a note of thanks. And, but I think it's just a matter of always having, a thankful mind. In communicating with the people that are attending and those that are volunteering.
That's great. What do you do to thank your volunteers?
Like Chris, thank them all the time. I also try to take note of comments other people made about, I was uncomfortable coming to the meeting, but Jane was so warm when I came in. She made me feel at home, to make sure that I pass something like that on to them. At our retreat, we put ribbons on their name tags. I recently was at a CPRS conference where I did volunteers, and I gave each of the volunteers a ribbon over which they were very, very proud of. It was a small thing, but it made them stand out. So some recognition wherever. Occasionally, I will also write a handwritten thank you note, hand it or mail it to them. It's any kind of appreciation. Inviting them to behavioral health meetings. It's like, it may be boring for some people to go, but people are thrilled. It's like, wow, you think I'm smart enough, wise enough, I have something to give to go. That's a recognition.
Great. And Jeff, what about you? How do you thank your volunteers?
Well, every year we have, around the same time we have our anniversary, we have a similar appreciation picnic. That's one of the things that we raise money for every single year. And like Chris and Daisy said, we frequently validate and acknowledge, but everybody does this. So it's not just the leadership. Everybody's validating everybody else and acknowledging the great jobs that they do. And again, to defer to another quote, and I think all of our volunteers subscribe to this. It's a real joy which comes from loving to do good things without wanting to be repaid. It's the reward that lasts forever. So the volunteers, that's why they're volunteering. They really want to do good things, and they feel great about themselves. DBSA has that flyer, kindness is a way to wellness. We make sure that flyer's all over the place all the time. So, as far as acknowledging them, otherwise thanking them, I think they get, their thanks is the gratitude that they get, or the feeling that they get, the gratitude that they get from seeing how much they help other people. So the picnic is basically what we do to formally thank people.
That's wonderful. So we have a couple minutes left, and I just wanted to give each of you a chance to share one final piece of advice that you would give chapter leaders for building a volunteer program. So we probably have about a minute for each of you. Chris, would you like to share your one big piece of advice?
Well, I think it's really about caring for the people, and having I think a thankful heart in terms of working with the various different people that you're going to work with, and I think that will carry you quite far.
Great. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Well, delegation, first of all. I know a lot of chapter leaders do everything themselves, and delegating. It's been very hard for me over the years. I think it took me probably longer than it's taken a lot of other people, but to delegate and trust the process. Right now, I'm not attending a lot of groups. I am on the board, but I'm doing less than everybody else is. And one of the reasons are because everybody referred to it as Jeff's group, and it's not Jeff's group. Jeff was the founder, but everybody else made it the group that it is. Again, it's just empowering volunteers and finding the volunteers, letting them do what they do best, and really identifying what you need the volunteers for. A lot of people look for volunteers, but they don't have anything to have them volunteer. A lot of people who want to volunteer in our group, we actually send them out to different places. And, you know, we have Operation Gratitude that put boxes together for the troops overseas. It's just volunteering. It's just doing something they can do. We have things that we can use them for. We bring them in. If not, we just try to get them again into that volunteering state of mind.
Wonderful. Daisy, any advice from you?
I would start with the role of a leader is to develop other leaders, to develop members in their talents. I would like to suggest asking with volunteers, it's where would you like to serve? What are your ideas? What could we do that's new? Lots of praise, and ditto to what Chris and Jeff said, that volunteering is its own reward. Telling the volunteers how much it served you. Facilitators will often say that they get more out of their meetings because they facilitate.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I want to thank everyone here for joining us today. And to our panelists, I'm so grateful for your sharing of expertise, your time here today, but also the incredible amount of time that you have put into each of your communities.